Hello and welcome back. I hope you're having a fantastic day. I wanted to pop in and share my Yeti for Winter mini Slimline card that I made for the Dare to Be Artsy Instagram hop last weekend. I shared this card on my Instagram page for the hop, but I actually wasn't supposed to be playing with this stamp. However, I think my brain thought the Yeti was too cute and I had to make a fun winter scene. I've cut a mini Slimline card base, some snowbanks from the curved Slimline borders, and the background for my card off camera. I used, the snowflake background paper and a nice shimmery lavender cardstock to layer together on my panel. I used the YMS gumdrops as my inspiration for color for this card set today, so I'll be coloring my images in colors that sort of coordinate with those. I'm stamping my images from the Yeti for Winter set, and I'm stamping the Yeti, the igloo, and a few mountains onto some 110-pound Neenah cardstock with Dare to Be Artsy Totally Black ink. This ink is actually alcohol friendly, and so it's great for all kinds of coloring, particularly with your alcohol markers. You don't have to worry about it bleeding. And here I'm just conditioning my stamps. Since this is the first time that I've used them, I like to condition my stamps before I stamp with them. So you'll see me inking up my stamps here. And I'm stamping this onto 110-pound cardstock. And I'm going to stamp it 3 times to get a clear, crisp impression. And I am just pressing down on the door of my MISTI with my Just Press It tool, I believe is what it's called, from Tailored Expressions. It kind of looks like a blackboard eraser, but it works great for pressing on your MISTI door to get some clean images when you're stamping. So now I'm gonna take this out. I'm gonna go ahead and clean off my stamps because I realized, oh, I need to stamp some more mountain ranges. So I'm gonna actually clean off my stamps here, and then I'm gonna stamp a couple more mountain ranges so that we can have. I initially thought I was gonna do 3 for this card, but 3 ended up being a little bit much, I thought, for the mini Slimline. 3 or more would work great for a regular Slimline, but for a mini I thought it was a little bit too much. For the background. I mean, I guess if you wanted to do a full mountain range in the background, you could certainly do that. So I'm just taking my stamps off and putting them back on their packaging, because I tend to lose things if I don't do that. So here I'm going to stamp the mountain range a couple more times. Same thing, using Dare to Be Artsy Totally Black ink, which is an awesome ink. Stamp a couple of those, clean it off in between, stamp again. That magnet always seems to get in my way no matter where I put it. I'm always having to move it. Stamp that a couple more times. I think we're ready to go. So you're going to see me, I'm going to stamp another image, another Yeti image using a stamp block and some scrap paper I had sitting there. And the reason for this is that I'm coloring today with my Tri-Blend, my Spectrum Noir Tri-Blend markers, which is not typically my marker of choice. I usually prefer to color with Copics or with Chroma flagship markers, which are also alcohol markers. I just don't care for the Tri-Blends because of the tips. They're not as flexible, so to me I think it's harder to color with them. But I wanted to challenge myself, so I thought I would stamp it on a piece of scrap paper and then I could test out how it was going to look, and ultimately I ended up using this image in my card. It did look pretty good with the blends that I chose with my Tri-Blend, and I did keep this card very simple. I think there's only 3 colors in this card, so grays, some light purple, and the light blue-green colors. So very, very simple coloring. I will go ahead and let you enjoy the coloring process, and I will put on some music. Thanks. Okay, we're back. So I've gotten everything colored, except I am recoloring my mountain ranges. Originally I had thought to color them in sort of an evergreen color, like darker greens, and I ultimately didn't like that so much. So I asked my resident expert husband about what color I should color mountain ranges, and he suggested Purple Mountains Majesty. So there you go. We have Purple Mountains. And I colored these. I kept this just this way so you can kind of see. I changed my mind. And so this is sort of the process I went through. So here I'm going to die cut all of my images out that I just colored using the coordinating dies that come with this, that you can purchase, the coordinating dies for this set. And so they cut beautifully, of course. So I cut those off camera. Sorry, I have to run back and forth to my my die cutter, which is at the opposite end of my crafting table. And sometimes it's not very cooperative, so it takes me a minute or two to get those run through my die cutting machine here. So there's my other mountain. Put those back before I lose them. And then, where's my Yeti? Oh, I've already cut my Yeti. Okay, so I already cut my Yeti, I cut my igloo. So now I'm going to figure out how I want to place everything on my card panel. I took the curved slimline border dies, I cut full sheets, and then I just cut them down to the size that I would need them to be for a mini slimline. So I just took my scissors and snipped off the excess. And now I'm just playing around with placement for my mountains and for my igloo. I knew my igloo was going to be in the upper right. And I really like that I kind of colored the snow on the igloo sort of a purple color, with the igloo being represented as ice. I typically use blue for my like representation of cold or ice or something like that. So I thought I'd use purple for the snow. And now I'm going to play with some distress glitter. I've actually never used this. So I thought, well, let's put some actual snow on this igloo. So I used my Barely Art liquid glue, and I basically just used some tweezers and a scrap piece of paper, and I sprinkled on the distress glitter, and I'm like, ooh, that's kind of cool. So I added in a little bit more glue to fill in the top of the igloo, and I really liked the way that looked. So I added some more around the bottom of the igloo. Got a little carried away with the distress glitter here. It's so pretty. And I had never used it before, so I started adding distress glitter everywhere. And I could have probably added more. So I kind of had to stop and set that aside to dry, which it actually dries fairly quickly because the liquid glue dries quickly. So then I added a little bit to my mountain tops. The little snowy peaks are going to have some distress glitter added to them. And it's the perfect, it adds the perfect amount of dimension and sparkle. I highly recommend it. It's super easy to use, and it's not quite as messy as regular glitter. So if you're afraid of regular glitter, I wouldn't worry too much about it. This is actually pretty cool. So now I'm gonna start getting everything layered up, and I'll show you my end result. Sorry, I'm out of focus here. So there's my igloo with my distress glitter on it. It really adds a lot of sparkle and shine. And then my little mountain peaks. And I'm going to layer all my cardstock pieces together. So I have the shimmery lavender piece, which I think is from Simon Says Stamp. And then the snowflake background is from Dare to Be Artsy. And then I just added my main snowbank to the card back with some score tape. And I'm going to use some dimensional foam to add in my elements. Although I do believe, I can't remember if I think I added dimensional foam to my igloo as well. Maybe not. But I did add dimensional foam to that front snowbank, and I did stamp Yeti or Not on it from the stamp set. And so I'm going to add, I guess I am going to add score tape to my igloo, and I added some score tape to the back mountain range, and then the foreground mountain range I'm going to put a little dimensional foam behind those, and I'm going to layer them sort of between my snowbanks. And then I will add my Yeti to the card front with a little double layer of dimensional foam. So he's going to be in the foreground. here I'm gonna finally get everything placed onto my card. Sometimes positioning things on the card takes a little bit of imagination, and then you have to visualize it. It's hard, you know, I'm not somebody who plans out my cards at all. I don't draw anything out before I make a card. I know a lot of people do that. I'm kind of a fly by the seat of your pants kind of person, so it's whatever looks good to me at the time. And sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. You know, maybe if I was more of a planner, I would have, I don't know. I don't know. I can't say that there's a good way or a bad way when it comes to card making. It's whatever makes you happy. So I got some dimensional foam on here. Get my mountains. I want to make sure that they're sort of even when I place them onto the card panel. So I'm kind of making sure I got little dimensional foam on all the little peaks, and I'm trying to tuck it down a little bit behind that snowbank, and you can see that part of it is kind of sticking up, and you'll see how I fix that here in a little bit. You're gonna laugh. So all the little tape has to come off. I usually end up with tons of little pieces of remnant 3M dimensional foam tape on the floor and on my desk and everything else. So now my Yeti is going to go right in front, and I am adding dimensional foam to him as well. And we're going to have to double layer this up a little bit. Just stick his feet. So basically I just stuck his feet to the front snowbank, and then the back of him has the, from the, like kind of the knees up, he has a double layer of dimensional foam. And we're just going to stick him on there so that the upper part of him will stick to the background, and then his feet will stick to the foreground. This makes him level on the card, so you don't have a wonky Yeti, because you don't want a wonky Yeti. It's a lot of fussing with the Yeti. Sorry about that. Gotta get him just perfect. Gotta make sure his arms aren't floppy too, so. There's my, I think he's all ready to go. And just take the pieces off. And actually one little final adjustment, and he's perfect. So now we're going to take off that tape. Finally. Finally. Or did I cut one more piece? No, maybe it looks like I cut one more little piece. Okay. Yeah, I put score tape on the bottom part where his feet are, so that the score tape would stick to the front panel. Then of course dimensional foam sticks to the back panel. And you have a flat Yeti against your card, so you're not going to have to worry about him sagging in the middle anywhere. So we'll get him added on the card panel, and then you'll see how I fixed this mountain range, that you can kind of see the middle mountain. You can see the snowbank behind it. So we don't have elevated mountains, so we're going to fix the elevated mountains. But first, I can't remember if I do this first or if I do it last. I am going to fix it first. So to fix that, I'm going to use a little bit more of the distress glitter and some liquid glue. And I'm gonna, well, initially I thought I was going to color the snowbanks with a little bit of purple to again make them look like snow and ice, and ultimately I decided I didn't like that so much. Because it really blended with my mountains, and I just didn't like the look of it. So I sort of covered it up, and I used the distress glitter to do that. So you'll see here, I'm going to get out my glue and my distress glitter, and I'm just going to add a bunch more dimension to this front snowbank and then around the mountain ranges. And I really like the Barely Art glue, because it has that precision tip, so it's perfect, and I have not had an issue with this clogging at all. It's really great glue, and I like the fact that it dries clear and it dries fast. So here's the distress glitter, adding a little bit to that front snowbank. And then I go crazy. It's distress glitter everywhere. So another layer of distress glitter on both sides. And it really adds tons of dimension, so it makes your snowbanks look fluffy, which is kind of cool. And then I'm going to add it in front of the mountain ranges, and I'm going to fill in that little gap so that you won't notice that there was a gap there. And it works perfectly. And here I add a little bit more. I'm going crazy with the distress glitter over here. I don't think you can ever have too much. So cleaning up my glitter mess. And I did set aside my card to dry. I think I let it dry overnight. And then I came back and looked at it again, and I decided it needed more. So first I'm going to add my little gumdrops, my YNS gumdrops, to the center of the snowflakes for the background. This is just to add another pop of color in the background. So I use the smallest ones on the panel, and you'll see I use a little bit of liquid glue for these. I know they have adhesive backs on them, but they were actually popping off the little acetate sheet. So I thought I should probably put some glue on the back of those just to make sure that they stay in place. I don't want them popping off my card panel. So I think I added one to each of the larger snowflakes. I tried to not do the same colors in the same area, just to keep it different, sort of a different pattern with some different colors. And it worked out well. And here I go. More glue. And I'm going to do a little wavy sort of snowbank coming down from the side of the card on this side. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And I think that really kind of gave it the feel of like drifting snow. I easily toyed with doing the entire snowbanks and adding distress glitter to them, but ultimately I decided that would be too much. I don't know. I might have to try that sometime though, because it really adds a lot to the card. So I'm going to add just a little bit. I'm filling in some of the gaps. The glue dried back a little bit, so it left some little indentations, and so I'm kind of filling in some of those indentations, trying to make it level. And I just set it aside to dry, and that pretty much finishes up my card for today.